Why is Mob Psycho 100 so different from other anime series? Is it because it has good and satisfying endings? Is it because it has a protagonist that's markedly different from all others? Is it because it makes you feel and think on a deep level, often not achieved by other series? I'm here to share my ideas on what makes Mob Psycho 100 magical, and in my opinion, the greatest anime of all time. In this video, I will delve deeply into the psychology and themes of the story of Mob Psycho 100. I'm not here to summarize the show or give you a synopsis, just here to talk about why it's great. Spoilers ahead. The first time I watched Mob Psycho 100, I didn't realize how special it was, but I immediately wanted to watch it again. The first time I watched season 1, I knew that it was funny and I knew that there was something different about the protagonist. These two things combined made me want to go in for a second watch. The second time watching season 1, I started to realize how different the show was. Without shoving it in your face, it explores deep and difficult topics. It explores the idea of being different and what that means for people from a variety of walks of life. It explores the idea of second chances and how meaningful change can come from giving someone another chance. It explores the depth of friendships and the important role that friendship plays in our lives, and the importance of making your life your own, achieving your own goals despite what others say and think about your choices. I had the privilege of watching the second and third seasons of the show as they aired with the rest of the world. In the second season, the story becomes more deeply emotional and tugs on your heartstrings. It plays with the idea of how you would feel if this character you've grown to love's entire world was flipped on its head and everything was taken from him. Then reconcile with the character you love going head to head against the strongest Esper we've ever seen. The first time watching the big boss fight, I was legitimately afraid for Mob's life. And then with the ending of the third season, it delved into very deep subjects of self-acceptance and learning to love yourself despite having flaws. Learning to accept those flaws and embrace them as part of who you are. And presenting yourself to the world as your whole self, not just the face you want others to see. My love for this series has grown with each season, and I will go through the things that make it so incredibly special, broken down into themes. Differences are beautiful and worth being celebrated. Something that is a constant through the series, the frequent showcasing of differences between the characters and Mob's ability to become friends with anyone despite their differences. Everyone else seemingly is able to become friends with him despite being timid, meek, quiet, and unpopular. It's so important that we have a glimpse of a protagonist who can't show his emotions, who isn't brave, heroic, and strong. He is someone who would otherwise fade into the background if not for his incredible powers. It's so refreshing to see someone who struggles just like everyone else to get stronger, get faster, make good grades, make friends, and find love. This speaks to the struggles of everyday life mounting to a point where you can't see your strengths anymore. The smallest conflicts and problems in life can feel like massive ones. When you're in the midst of something difficult, it's hard to see what your strengths are, or how you can overcome the difficult situation. Mob is the opposite of other protagonists in anime. He has two loving parents that raised him to be a respectful and upstanding citizen of Seasoning City. He has a brother who, despite being his rival at first, grows to love and accept him, even protecting him. He has a part-time job and a club that he's a part of. He's a normal kid, but he's got crazy power, a power that he doesn't let go to his head, and that he refuses to use to achieve his goals. In other anime, despite being regular kids, protagonists always have these stereotypical bombastic personalities. Courageous and heroic deeds are done, and they want to be the best, or they want to defeat some big bad guy. But not Mob. He does beat many bad guys, and he's the most powerful psychic in the world. But he doesn't possess these character traits that we've become accustomed to. These character traits every other anime protagonist has. He's quite the opposite. He's meek, he's quiet, and he doesn't show big emotions. His differences initially put people off when they meet him. They usually make comments about how he's weird or boring or something that they don't like about him. But everyone eventually grows to love him, as he's steadfast in his qualities and reliably the same. His relationships with those around him are also extremely different from other relationships that we would normally see in anime. His relationship with Master Reigen evolves throughout the series. He does everything Reigen tells him to at the beginning, but slowly becomes more independent and has his own thoughts and opinions. In the beginning, he follows his morals and principles to a T as if they were doctrine or law. Then he begins to learn that there are exceptions to every rule. He holds Reigen in high esteem and he takes everything he says seriously, respects authority, seen in his interactions with Reigen and his parents. So often in anime and other media, we're shown characters that are disrespectful of norms. They go behind people's backs and break all the rules to, save the day or do whatever's necessary to be the best. But Mob is always a rule follower. Following rules doesn't always work out in his favor, as evidenced by many times throughout the series where following rules actually makes things harder for him. We are able to see Mob's true character through his differences, and it is his characteristics that set him apart that make him stand out and shine. Encouragement can come from where we least expect it. This show explores many emotions, including positive ones like pride, self-confidence, and love, and negative ones like sadness, loss, grief, fear, and loneliness. It explores them all so well, whether through Mob exploring them with his personal experiences or through the side characters presented in the show. When experiencing these feelings, especially the negative ones, the people need encouragement and to be uplifted. This show does an amazing job of demonstrating encouragement coming from the most unlikely places. It can often come from a passing comment or conversation that seems insignificant. Something that the show does many times leading up to Mob's ability to express his own emotions is they use external tone indicators to show you how he's feeling on the inside, such as the percentages or the iconic flower popping out of his head moment, or by him becoming super muscular in Season 2 when he has his self-actualization. If you pay close attention to his face, it's unflinching, it never cracks, and it's always flat. These tone indicators are perfect for showing the immense impact that others have on Mob without realizing it. They may be progressing him towards an explosion, causing him severe distress, or heavily impacting his mental state, but due to his inability to express himself as other people can, the people causing these reactions have no idea the effect that they've had on him. The opposite is true also in Mob Psycho 100. We are likewise shown external tone indicators to show how Mob is feeling when he's uplifted, encouraged, proud, or otherwise happy. These cases serve as a reminder of why it's important to think before we speak and try to understand the impact of our words and actions, the impact that they have on the people around us, especially those who struggle to express themselves. Many things could cause people to have difficulty expressing themselves, and people with invisible disabilities and challenges are often affected greatly by words and actions that other people may see as small. Power is useless without control and wisdom. Another theme that is constant throughout Mob Psycho is the idea that power without wisdom is useless. He frequently, and at the end of every season, confronts someone with great power and no wisdom. Even himself, or his hidden self, is all-powerful but mindless and unable to be controlled. We all know the quote made famous by the first Spider-Man movie, "With great power comes great responsibility." And I think it's true, cheesy, and lovely, but I found a proverb that better encapsulates this idea. Power without wisdom collapses under its own weight. This is shown time and time again in the show with each big conflict, whether it be with the students and then the Claw in the first season, or with Reigen, then ultimately the big bad Suzuki in the second season, or in the final season with Dimple and eventually with himself. You may be thinking the conflict with Reigen doesn't apply here because he doesn't have power, but he does. He has power in Mob's life. He's one of the most influential people to Mob, and he demonstrates an inability to be responsible and wise with this power, and this is what leads them to drift apart. Mob eventually has to learn this for himself. and learn to know himself on a deeper level to treat his powers with wisdom. In the first 2 seasons, he treats his powers with the lessons that he's been taught by Master Reigen. He adopts his principles and morals unflinchingly. It is later, when he grows as a person and learns to become wise with his power, that he can withstand his power and not collapse beneath its weight. In the first season, it feels as if the show is still trying to get on its feet, to develop strong roots and a foundation so that in later seasons it can fully explore these deep and complex topics. But even in the first season, you're able to see the struggle that Mob has accepting his inner self. And you see this in the first major conflict of the show with Hanazawa, and how he approaches the conflict with so much rigidity. He's stuck on the idea that you cannot use your powers in any way that go outside of the rules that Master Reigen has taught him. He uses those rules as a crutch to keep him from hurting people. Being presented with the struggle initially helps you understand how he feels about his powers and leads to being able to relate to Mob on a much deeper level in later seasons when he's struggling to accept himself. In the second season of Mob Psycho, he is yet again confronted with someone who has very different ideals and opinions than himself. He chooses to approach this conflict with unflinching loyalty and friendship, rather than choosing to destroy his opponent. This is seen later in the season as being incredibly beneficial, as this horrible bad guy that was made up to be the big bad throughout the whole season ends up forming a more meaningful relationship with his son as a result of the kindness that Mob showed him. Mob finds himself on the flip side of this theme when confronted in the mind of the girl Minori. It is here that he's shown that when feeling sorry for himself and manipulated into believing no one cares about him, he becomes utterly powerless. It isn't until he regains the power of self-respect that he can break free from the mental prison. Anytime when losing his grip in this series, Mob recalls all the people who helped him along the way and uses this to remain strong and recall the wisdom that he possesses. The wisdom he gives to the antagonists is often childlike, such as, "Do not use your powers to hurt others," "People need other people," or "No one can place value on another person's life." Simple concepts that most people could agree on, but seemingly require much convincing. In the face of his enemies, his steadfast dedication to his ideas always wins them over in the end. The importance of setting goals for ourselves. Joining the Body Improvement Club, running in the school marathon, all to eventually confess his feelings to Tsubomi. These goals are looked down upon by his friends and family, but they remain so important to Mob. He remains tenacious in his pursuit of these goals. It wasn't until much later in my life that I was able to understand the importance of goal setting. Setting these goals and sticking to them no matter what is such an empowering experience. If you stick with them through achievement, it can lead to a tremendous sense of pride, accomplishment, and self-worth. In the beginning, Mob is floundering without much of a goal or purpose. He was working a part-time job and he had a crush, but had not yet decided how he could approach his crush or make his dreams come true until he decided to join the Body Improvement Club. It is here that he found his drive and motivation. This drive eventually led him to develop other goals in an attempt to be noticed and become more popular to garnish attention from his crush. Despite having lofty goals, Mob never really accomplishes his goals in an ideal way. The goals are always met in a different way than expected or have less than a perfect outcome, such as him fainting when running the marathon or being shut down when asking out his crush. But the important thing is not the result. The important thing is that he tried his best. He gives his goals his all and sticks with them no matter what obstacles he may face. I think the end of Season 3, in which his true self marched forward with reckless abandon, hurting the ones he loved, is a metaphor for his dedication to his goals to a fault, and it brings attention to the need to be more realistic and less all or nothing in his pursuits. Sometimes the ones you love fall as casualties to your goals. At the end of each goal or landmark in his journey throughout the show, joining the club, running the marathon, or asking out his crush, he is never disappointed. He tries, and he always feels a sense of accomplishment from giving his all. And in all situations, despite not turning out as perfect as they would have been, they always lead to a better outcome than when he started. For example, he now talks to Tsubomi on the phone, and his stamina is greatly improved. Something that's often used in the corporate world is the idea of stretch goals. An example of this is early on in Microsoft development, their goal was to have a Microsoft computer on every desk, in every home, and in every workplace. Well, for many years, you can see that they were not achieving that goal. The goal itself, being a stretch goal, led many people in the company to take bigger risks, make bigger moves, make bigger gambles so they could achieve a more lofty goal. In the corporate world or the business world, often the bigger the goal, the better, and it's not always attainable. But having a huge goal, such as increasing production by 3 times or increasing sales by 10 times, forces the employees to make sacrifices and take risks that they wouldn't normally take. You can compare this to Mob Psycho and Shigeo Kageyama's risk-taking on a much smaller scale, as the risk of embarrassing himself when running in the race, or the risk of rejection when confessing his love. Curiously, not much is known about the manga creator, One. He keeps himself anonymous and leaves his fans with curiosity and speculation as to who he is as a person. However, looking at the facts of his situation, that when he started creating One Punch Man, he was doing it after work during his full-time career, and that he had taken time off to deal with serious family matters. These things imply that he's a strict follower and adopter of Japanese work culture. And in Japanese work culture, they strive for perfection. They strive to be the best, and they strive to achieve their goals. I think that this is evident within the goal setting and striving to achieve seen in Mob Psycho 100. One of the few quotes that we have from One, the creator of Mob Psycho 100, says, "What I have in mind is to tell a big story of one little step. I don't believe our lives change completely for the better at a short notice. It's all the small progress we make that's important." That's what I think while I'm drawing this manga. This is such a beautiful ideal, and he achieved it fully when writing this story. He portrays exactly what it's like to work towards big goals. Mob does not join the body improvement club and instantly gain muscles and all the abilities he wants. It's a slow, arduous process where he becomes better little by little. It's not only Mob that sets lofty goals that often fall short in the show. Many other characters do the same. Master Reigen sets the goal to increase traffic to his website and to increase his customer base and hire new employees. Dimple sets goals to be the most powerful spirit, to be loved and adored by all and eventually become a god. These are insane goals, and one could argue that he does achieve them, at the same time ends up falling short. But Master Reigen and Dimple both know there's a common thread. They may not achieve their lofty goals, but the lessons they learn along the way and the outcomes end up building their character and being more impactful than if they had achieved the goal the way they wanted to. Character is greater than content. This idea is constant throughout the series, and it's seen time and time again through every character we're introduced to, with maybe the exception of Mob's parents. Reigen is constantly and confidently spewing lies, but remains a good person to his core. Dimple presents as a power-hungry megalomaniac, or so he would have you believe, but he's a loyal and true friend. Onigawara fronts as a big, bad, tough guy, but deep down he wants friendships and connections just like everyone else, and he's pursuing a wholesome dream of becoming a mangaka. Mob can see past the content that's presented from these people and see through to the true character and judge them as a person. He can see the good and potential in most people, even if they're committing nefarious deeds. Character is greater than content throughout the series. Mob has a certain ability to see through the facade of one's public persona and the air they put on, down to the core of who they truly are as a person. This is immediately evidenced in his relationship with Master Reigen, and it becomes even more apparent towards the middle of season 2 when they make up and Mob says, "I've always known that my master is a really good guy." Everyone that meets Reigen immediately thinks he's a scammer, a fraud, a phony. He's silly and over the top and generally just kind of the worst, but Mob sees through the facade to the core of who he is as a person and sees that he truly wants to help. With Dimple, the same is obvious. Even when confronted with betrayal and some distorted choices that he's made to become more powerful, Mob never loses faith that he truly is his friend, and in the end, that he'll make the right decisions. I believe that there is more to Tsubomi as well. I think that we got a small glimpse of it in the season 3 scene where it's seen through her point of view and we hear her inner monologue. There's a lot more to her than meets the eye, and rather than being the vapid pretty girl in the school, she's much more. And without even noticing it or consciously realizing it, Mob sees through her facade and sees the core of who she is as a person. This is also confirmed in the scene at the end of season 3 where his true hidden self explains why they love Tsubomi-chan. This subject of presenting two selves is deep and meaningful. In America, we often put forth a professional face, a face that we want the world to see. And then we have our personal life in which we may be more relaxed, we don't care as much about what we say. In Japanese culture, this is a way of life, and they have specific terms to identify your public face and your private face. Hone and tatamai. People are raised from childhood learning that you have to act a certain way when you're at school or work or in public. Whereas in America, we may have a different way that we act at work or at church. We can be whoever we want to be outside of that. Whether we're shopping, on vacation, with family, or just at home, we feel a lot more able to be ourselves, and there's not such a rigid dichotomy between our public face and our private self. Something that's common with Japanese people experiencing these two faces is they often say things that they don't mean, just out of being polite. Throughout Mob Psycho 100, and especially in the 3rd season, Shigeo Kageyama struggles with his inner darkness and his inner self that could at any moment destroy everyone around him. In the 3rd season, we learn the root cause of that inner self rearing its ugly head was his suppression of his true self and the suppression of his emotions. I wonder if the creator of Mob Psycho 100 had these ideas of Hone and Tatamai in mind when writing about Mob's true self and his public self. Using this story as a metaphor for the difficult and complex Japanese custom that could have made him feel invalidated in his dreams of becoming a mangaka or manga creator. It's not until you see Mob displaying his emotions for the first time, smiling and laughing with his friends or crying his heart out because he was rejected, that you realize how absent from the series they've been leading up to this point, how flat his affect has been throughout, and why it feels so good even seeing the slightest glimpse of a smile earlier in the series when he's talking about or looking at his crush Tsubomi-chan. The animation used in the final scene before his two selves merge is brilliant. The deterioration of one self to make the other whole is the perfect visualization of how impossible to maintain two faces it is without one of them suffering. Often when we say things we do not mean or agree to do things that we don't truly want to do just for the sake of saving face or appearances, it takes a toll on our true self. Everyone deserves a second chance. Something else that is a constant throughout this show is the theme of second chances, and we're able to see that by giving people second chances, oftentimes their lives end up enriched, and Mob's life ends up enriched as well. Dimple is the perfect example of being given a second chance to work out in everyone's favor. Initially, he's regarded as the enemy, and he's targeting innocent people for power. Gaining power is his ultimate goal. When he's defeated by Mob, he grovels for his life, and he's given a second chance. This works out so heavily in his favor that it ends up saving his life later on. Dimple gives him questionable advice throughout the series, but Mob knows when to take him seriously and when to not listen to him. Dimple turns out to be loyal to a fault, and he's a great friend to have throughout the series. He sacrifices his dreams and aspirations to save Mob and ensure he lives the life he wants to live. I believe his ultimate decision to sacrifice himself to save Mob comes from the compassion he feels for him, since he gave him another chance and always believed in him while treating him like an equal. Ultimately, Mob shows Dimple that true friendship and being surrounded by those who believe in you is more meaningful and leads to his eventual change of heart. As spoken earlier, when the big bad of Season 2, Suzuki, was given a second chance, he ended up developing a relationship with his son, who he had become completely estranged from. And this second chance enriched the entire family's life. Serizawa is given a second chance and becomes Master Reigen's newest employee, and he doesn't go back to his shut-in hikikomori life. Hanazawa starts as a school bully who tries to force Mob to break his morals, and after being given a second chance, he gives him good advice, stands up for him, and sacrifices his own safety to save Mob's life. Time and time again, it's shown in Mob Psycho 100 that second chances can be worth it, and giving someone a second chance, whether that means fighting through difficult conversations in a relationship or an epic psychic battle, it can often turn into something even better after the conflict. Reigen is also given a second chance in Season 2 when Mob and Reigen grow apart and go a while without speaking to each other. Growing apart after Reigen mistreats him in a conversation about his friends, this leads Mob to question everything he says after that. But after an apology, Mob welcomes his master back into his life, both having learned so much from this experience. Mob learns how to better set boundaries for himself, and Reigen learns a great deal about his own thoughts and feelings for Mob, as well as his morals. From this point on in the show, there is a marked difference in the way that Reigen treats Mob. Occasionally, he's still dishonest with him or puts on a facade, but from this point forward, everything is done to help Mob or protect him in some way, not for his exploitation. The importance of giving second chances cannot be overstated in everyday life. The crippling anxiety many feel when encountering social situations is often exacerbated by the fear of being removed from the lives of those we care about. Many times in life, more forgiveness and second chances would be welcomed. In Japanese culture, there's often a huge amount of pressure placed on people to do things perfectly and live up to the expectations of others. I feel that the creator of Mob Psycho places the idea of forgiveness and second chances in the story as some idealistic hope of what the real world should be like. Your life is your own. This is the main theme of the show. It's stated in the theme song, and it's the major theme throughout the entirety of the story. The idea of taking your life by the reins, not allowing others to influence your choices, setting your own goals, choosing who to forgive and who you keep close, and choosing who's worthy of being in your life. I can't help but wonder yet again if Japanese culture affects this principle being displayed throughout the show, as oftentimes your life is not your own in Japanese culture. You're forced to pursue a career that will make your family proud and make the most money, not necessarily something that could bring you joy and fulfillment like being a manga creator. Regardless of what country you live in, the idea of your life being your own is extremely powerful for everyone. The idea is that you're the main character in your own story, and you have the right to choose your future and choose what your life looks like. Mob could have easily faded into the background of his classmates. He could have never reconciled with his younger brother, quit his part-time job when things got uncomfortable, but time and time again, he chooses to do what makes him happy, not what others would expect from him. For example, when he chooses to join the Body Improvement Club rather than the Telepathy Club, when the Body Improvement Club has plenty of members and he's the last guy anybody would expect to join. In life, we are often overcome with stress and anxiety about meeting others' goals and expectations, about presenting ourselves in a certain way, looking good, sounding good, making enough money, being presentable, and being attractive. But Mob shows us that we can choose our own path in life, and our life truly is our own. And if we want to look a certain way, sound a certain way, or do certain hobbies, pursue goals that others may think are unattainable or unrealistic, we can do it. When I rewatch Mob Psycho 100, I am always filled with inspiration. I feel like I can do anything if I try hard enough, and I have more chances to try again than I usually feel like I do. It fills me with hope, and I should never give up, even when things are really, really hard. Well, there you have it. All the reasons I believe make Mob Psycho 100 magical and the best anime of all time. Truly, this series is like lightning in a bottle. I don't think anyone could ever capture the feeling that comes along with this series, but I've tried to express why I think it's so special. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with someone who you know loves Mob Psycho. If you made it this far, I really appreciate your time, and I hope you do something today that makes you happy. See you later! Bye!